entire theory of global warming for 18 years hasn't been happening.
Yeah, I mean, we need to sort this out rather than ignore it. I mean, this is what I'm concerned about.
And Mr. Stein, you look like you want to make a comment.
Yeah,
I want to ask a question on this because you also are quite familiar with the cooking of the books of the hockey stick, and indeed, Dr. Curry, you mentioned ClimateGate and the scientists receiving a whole lot of funding to conclude global warming was occurring and then adjusting their results to reflect that. I would note if you systematically adjust the numbers upwards for more recent temperatures, wouldn't that by definition produce a data set that proves your global warming theory is correct? And the more you add, the more warming you can find, and you don't have to actually bother looking at what the thermometer says. You just add whatever number you want.
No, that's what's fascinating about this. Could you just tell me the left-hand date on your chart, Senator? What is it? I can't quite see it from
on the left.
On the right-hand chart of the blue and red line. What's the?
In both of them, it's 1900.
1900. So you look at the blue line, you look at the red line. This is the adjustment of figures that is going on now.
Yeah.
What has happened since the global warming pause is that the public does not trust the alarmist establishment to tell them what the climate will be like in the year 2050. What that chart shows is why the public is moving to a new position now where it doesn't even trust these federal agencies to tell them what the climate was like in 1950 or 1920 or 1900. And that's interesting. If these adjustments are merited, if an adjustment in the official recorded observed temperature, because Gavin Schmidt at NASA wasn't standing out by the thermometer in the year 1920, but he suddenly decides a century on, what are we now? Well, 95 years on, that 1920's temperature needs adjusting. That tells you how uncertain the science is. I would also like, Senator, just to say a word about this whole national security thing, because I've never heard anything quite so ridiculous. We are a country in which we have an enemy overseas who so-called radicalizes suburban couples in California who go out and kill people. But we are planning now for global security threats a century hence, because the Maldives might have been swept away by water by then. The entire population of the Maldives are all Sunni Muslim, so they'll fit in perfectly fine if they all move to this Brussels suburb that produced the shooters in Paris. But climate change is irrelevant to the long-term patterns. I cannot tell you how absurd it is to be talking about climate change as a security threat compared to, say, just to pluck at random, population. In 1920, the British Isles and British West Africa had the same population, about 45 million people, for England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales on the one hand, and what are now Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Ghana, the Gambia on the other hand. Now, the British Isles has a combined population, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, about 69 million, and British West Africa has a population of 250 million. So the security threat is exactly what we see in Europe at the moment, that Niger, a country that has increased its population by 50% in this century, since the year 2000, and had millions of starving people already that it couldn't feed, and is expected to increase its population tenfold by the end of the century, and all those people are just going to get on a boat and walk into Italy, Greece, Spain, Portugal. And the idea that somehow climate change's impact on that is absolutely trivial to the remorselessness of those numbers. And I understand that governments find it easier to deal with cloud cuckoo, fantasy land, saving the planet type issues. But this is a complete waste of time for an already beleaguered Defense Department having difficulty fighting the wars it's actually in right now in Afghanistan and Iraq and elsewhere, suddenly dealing with sea levels in the Maldives in the 22nd century. It's completely preposterous and a complete waste of time.
So, I'll leave that aside for a moment. and simply observe, if we look to the satellite data, we see for 18 years no significant